You're listening to Living with Louie. So, welcome back to this edition of Living with Louie. And we have Allison Staples here. She's with Delmarva Speech Therapy from Berlin, Maryland. Hi, Allison.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Actually, because of your help, I'm doing great. So, I'm really glad to have you share with the listeners some of the things that you have taught me that have improved my speech, and maybe describe how my speech was when we first met.
Okay. So, when I first met you, we are talking, probably about 6 months ago. And that when we first met, your speech was very much very, can't think of the word now.
Broken.
Yes, broken, and that you were having a really hard time coming up with the words you were trying to say. So, with that, when you were having that hard time, you were presenting with more frustration in your talking, which was then causing you not to talk as much.
I was on the, here I am searching for the word, speaking of word retrieval, but at any rate, I was on a Zoom meeting today,
Mm-hmm.
and it was surprising to me how many people on there that have Lewy body that also have, you can tell they have different speech issues as well. Um, and one of the things that one person said was that when the frustration level goes up, the stress level goes up, and it becomes harder to achieve your goal.
And that is very common, and you see that a lot in patients. When the frustration gets so severe, think of that as almost like a roadblock that, now you have to find a new way around that. And a lot of times what I tell patients to do is just stop and take a breath and think about what they're trying to say to help their brain and their mouth catch up, because your brain's probably moving a mile a minute. And then all of a sudden you hit that roadblock. And when you hit that roadblock, you need a way to get around it.
Well, I know that you taught me how to kind of slow down, and when it's gets to one of those roadblocks, to just take a second and let the brain, as you said, catch up before the mouth gets engaged.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll see too, if your mouth is ready to move but your brain is not, that's where you hear a lot of patients will stutter almost. And it's that disfluent event where they'll either hold on to the sound, or they'll say the sound multiple times. And, just by taking that breath allows the body to calm, and then you're not holding that tension in the mouth like you want to.
Hmm. So, what other techniques have you deployed? I know you've got a lot of things in your toolbox.
That I
So,
do, yes.
yes, you do. And by the way, she knew about what we call plosives, and she was like, "Ah, now you're speaking my language."
Yes. So, a lot of times when we're stuck on a word, some of the easier ways to get around that is to do things such as describing the word. If I'm stuck on the word dog, how would I describe that to somebody? Would I use my dog's name? Would I describe what it looks like? And that way, when you're doing stuff like that, it helps for your communication partner to really understand where you're coming from. And then they can understand what the word you're trying to say is and either give you a hint to have you find it yourself or just give you the word. Um, that's one thing that we've done before.
Right. I there's there. It's amazing to me, and I can tell you that it's amazing to the people who know me, my family, um, my loved ones. It's amazing to all of us, just how different and how much better my speech is. Is it perfect? No, but I don't know that it ever will be again. But you have done an amazing job at helping me to make it smoother and sound more, well, should I say natural? But I guess for me, it's natural now. It's a new
Yeah.
natural.
Exactly. And that's, it's a hard thing, and I know you've talked about this in previous podcasts, you're with the grieving. It's a hard thing to let that go. But, speech therapy can help give you ways to cope through that. So you're right. It's a new natural now.
Please talk about that more, because that interestingly enough was subject of part of the conversation today was um, acceptance and grieving, and it just surprised me how several members are there saying that um, they don't want to accept it. They're like no, and you can say no all you want.
You can. And it's a hard thing to come to terms with because, when we're talking communication or we're talking the swallowing function, you're talking that you're losing control and you're losing those things that we hold so dear. Communication is a basic human right. Everybody should be able to, in any way, shape, or form, be able to express themselves. And, when we have that where we're having a hard time coming up with the words or the speech isn't as fluent as what it was, that's a hard pill for people to swallow. But like again, through tools like speech therapy, I'm giving myself a plug here,
Well, that's fine. You deserve it, because I can tell you you've made a tremendous difference for me.
Those things, help you accept that you're right. You're not going to be where you were before you had this diagnosis or before you noticed the decline. But we can help that you can start to get control of your life back. That you
Manage the decline, I
correct.
think, is a good term.
Yes.
Because I think that is what you're, in my opinion, is that's what you teach, is how to manage your current situation.
Correct. And, we want to manage your current situation as well as to avoid any, you know, exacerbation of the disease. So, things, we talk about, with physical therapy and occupational therapy, we focus so much on fall prevention because a fall, can set a patient with Lewy body's dementia back tenfold.
It sends, excuse me, I didn't quite catch that.
So it'll send you back. It'll have some regression there. So, think of taking 10 steps forward and then you have something catastrophic like a fall. And it can set you back 6, 7, 8, sometimes even 10 steps, and we're back to square one. And then we're fighting to
To,
try to get you back to where you were beforehand.
to regain that.
Yes. So
Mm-mm-mm. So tell me, where I know that you've told me before,
mhm.
your experience with speech therapy. Where did that start for you?
So it started with me. I started with my brother. So my brother, I used to love to be at speech therapy sessions, all that sort of stuff, and that kind of fostered you know, my love for speech therapy. I went to school in Pennsylvania, East Stroudsburg University, for both my undergrad and my master's degree, and then my background was primarily in pediatrics, but I've always had adult placements throughout. My internship. I've always worked with adults. Throughout having those pediatric placements. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been primarily adults, and that's been very rewarding for me. When we see some success stories, like I always talk about my you, Larry, about how we've taken you from where you were to where you are now.
Well, I'm glad you consider me a success story and not a train wreck.
You're not a train wreck, not in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I would agree that I think that it's been interesting to me because I've learned a lot from you, and One thing that's has always stuck with me is something that you told me, and you said, "Well, when you're learning and we're learning, that's when you know that you're getting quality therapy."
Correct. Yeah. You always think, yes, I come in here and yes, I'm the expert in my field, but you know your body, you know your disease better than I do. And that's I've learned a lot from the short time that we've worked together in just different aspects of, how therapy works for you or how treatment works for you. So which has been great.
So I've been a guinea pig.
Sort of, yes.
Well, not totally, but
Not totally.
yeah.
No, no, but um I've had experience with other patients with Lewy body dementia who where we primarily focus on was swallowing. So we did a
And
lot.
I think you told me before that um, a lot of the experience you've had in the past with Lewy body patients, they're further along and a little bit more elderly than I am.
Yes.
And so, I mean, being in at the earlier stages um, gives you maybe a different perspective on what works and what doesn't work with Lewy body.
Yeah. And I will say that, I know a lot of people will look at somebody and they see that dementia word next to it and they're so quick to write patients off. And, you're a prime example of why we don't write patients off and why we give them the chances that they need to be able to express themselves. Again, we talk about communication and, I think 6 months ago, if you had tried to scare me out of here like you thought you were going to,
How did you, how did I make you feel that I was going to do that?
you didn't seem like you were real open to it initially. And then I think as, we kind of built that rapport and you kind of realized, and I think that was
I think I realized that you had something to bring to the table, and it was worth me paying attention.
yeah, uh, something like that.
Something like that. I'm like the kid that's in school that had ADHD all over the place.
Yeah. Or the kid who would say, I'm only here because my mom says I have to be here.
Yeah, well, I can say that about ADHD because I guarantee you that I had that when I was younger.
Yeah, probably.
No doubt. My kids have it, and after researching that, I saw a lot of the struggles that I had, as a young uh, adolescent growing up. And at that point, they didn't diagnose it.
No, it's not as diagnosed as it is now. But the one thing I will say though, I think that a testament to you is that you're a fighter. I think you're a natural born fighter in that when something you have an obstacle in your way, you're going to figure out a way to make it, to either fix it or to make it better. And I think that, we should really talk too about how you've had all these small victories that have made the success that you are now.
Well, this is true. And I think that you have to come to terms with what your diagnosis is, and then you have to accept that diagnosis, and then you have to make a conscious decision that you're going to fight back in every way that you can. And the things that I've learned from you are that I can fight the difficulties with my speech and swallowing and whatnot effectively. And so those I can win. I can win those battles. And so I think the more battles you can win, the easier the pill is to swallow.
Correct. And then also having, the
Quality of life.
yes. And, in order to help fight back is to be able to have those resources and know that those resources are available to you. Anybody can go, to their doctor and get referrals for therapy to help fight back on this.
Well, that's maybe something that you should speak to because I is that anyone can actually go
Hmm.
and request therapy from their doctor.
Correct.
How many do that?
Not many. And, it's patients like, you that are recognizing, yes, I have something going on. I need to find a way to help beat this. And I think that that isn't something that people realize. You have that say. If you want therapy and you're falling or you're having a hard time, getting in and out of the shower, you're having a hard time with your speech, all you need to do is tell your doctor that you want these therapies and they will write you scripts for them.
Well, interestingly enough, my prior experience with therapy had always been more on a inpatient. Um, well, I don't want to say inpatient. What's the term I'm looking for when you go to physical therapy?
Like a
A
facility.
facility. So if you're in the facility, it seems like they're like, "Oh, okay, you do this," and they show you the first time. When you come back,
Hmm.
they say, "Oh, by the way, just go over there and do that," while they play with their phone. And so I had a really negative um, experiences in the past with therapy, and just felt like, okay, this doesn't work. But I can say that you and your coworkers have certainly changed my perspective uh, 180 degrees.
I think the reason that it probably was changed, and I think we've talked about this before, is that, when you're in a place, outpatient therapy, for some people, outpatient therapy works. That they can go in, it's no different than a doctor visit. They can go in, they get their exercises, and then they're leaving. That does work. But for other patients, they need more individualized care. And we talk about individualized care, within the home, that's your safe spot. That's where you're spending a majority of your time. And if you're not safe in your home,
Where are you? Right.
then where are you safe? And I think that that's
Well,
a
I think you've heard me refer to my home as my safe space, because that's what it is.
yeah.
When the world is becoming overstimulating
Mhm.
to me, the best place that I can be is back home.
And having, the therapy team to develop a therapy plan around you being home where you're spending a majority of your time, I think is a big deal, and I think that that's why you bought into therapy this time.
Well, um, you don't give up easily either, so
Like I said, I told you weren't going to scare me out of here.
yeah, you're persistent.
Just
So
a touch.
there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
because we certainly have developed a rapport that is excellent. So at Delmarva Speech Therapy in Berlin,
Hmm.
what types of services do you offer there besides um, speech therapy? You do swallow therapy,
Correct. Yep.
and
Yeah, I do. So I work with adults and kids in that location. It's, we're working on, not only are we working on speech therapy, and I should go back to say speech therapy is one of those very misleading terms because you hear speech therapy and you think, I talk just fine. What do I need speech therapy for? But how much planning and sequencing have you and I worked on
a lot.
to help with certain activities, such as, we talked a lot about the podcast when you were originally coming up with the idea. We talked a lot about how to plan, how to sequence. That we also speech therapy also works on memory skills. Not many people realize that. And again, they're like, I don't need speech therapy, but then I can't remember my doctor's appointments.
Right.
So we work on developing, strategies for those things with patients. And, the biggest thing that I've always worked on is patient first care. So whatever the problem is of the day, that's what we work on.
That is quite true. That's one thing that has always impressed me, is that if there's something particular that's bothering me, we work on that.
Hmm.
And whatever your plan was now gets kind of rerouted. But you guys are always so flexible with that and understanding.
That's an important part of being a therapist, and it's not just speech therapy, but it's any therapist, is that flexibility to be able to, identify the need of the day and modify our therapy plan for that. And like I said, that's one thing that we tend to do here in the home is if this is a problem today, all right, let's solve it. And give you those strategies, the skills, that sort of stuff that you need to solve the problem when I'm not here.
So, how could someone get in touch with your office to seek out your services?
So I'm on Facebook, Delmarva Speech Therapy, for those that are local. That right now just accepting Medicaid and Medicare insurance, and then looking, I should say, not Medicare yet because Medicare is coming. I'm waiting on approvals.
Well, don't worry. It's the government. You'll be waiting.
And so you can look, look on. I also have a website for Delmarva Speech Therapy. You can look it on Google. But yeah, so that's typically how people are getting in contact with me right now.
Well, that's great. I wish you all the luck in the world with this because you're just an amazing person and an amazing therapist.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed working with you. You've been.
Well, we're not.
We're not done.
You're not divorcing me that easy.
No. We'll still be in here for a little while.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with our listeners, and I hope that people that need your services get a chance to hear this message and can seek you out because you certainly. How I want to term this now. I got to go. Here we are with that word retrieval thing again, and you certainly are very professional and very knowledgeable. And the things that you don't fully understand, you seek out the answer.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said,
then you share the answer.
Correct.
Yes, that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Please remember, folks, that we are 100% voluntarily funded by our listeners. So please go to the link at the bottom of your favorite podcast provider, and you'll find a link there that says support the show, or you can find us on GoFundMe under Living with Lewy Podcast, and every dollar counts. And every dollar helps. So please take a minute and go in and support the show. We certainly would appreciate it. The only thing we try to do is cover our operating costs and equipment maintenance costs. So we thank you and have a great day. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Living with Lewy.